Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So, stay with us as right now we present. Do you like thrillers? Do you like high-flying novels that will keep you on the seat of your pants? And one person actually said, if you're up all night reading this, don't blame us. It's because you picked up the book. We've got a great author and pilot, and he's been Edgar nominated for High Wire, which is the book that we're going to be talking about today, and all the things that he does. He was born in Iran, educated around the world. We're going to talk about his. Hopefully, we're going to talk about his upcoming book too, which is called Silent Voices. And we're going to talk about hopefully what he's got in mind there as well. Kam Majd is with us. And Kam, you've been on the show before, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad you're here again today. And we're going to be talking about your book, High Wired. How are you?
Doing great. And yes, it was wonderful last time. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, anytime. I love people that are following their dreams, and you've had a marvelous career, and now it's budding into, it appears, to be a second career, which I hope is going to be as successful as the first career was.
It's looking great. I've been very fortunate. The book is done very well. It's received very well. The reviews, and again, that people get in touch with you and tell you how much they've enjoyed it. And a couple that get in touch with you and yell at you because you didn't get some fact exactly right. But mostly it's been very much on the positive side. So I'm very lucky and fortunate and happy, with the outcome.
Boy, and I got to tell you, because on your webpage there is a review page, and that thing is filled. I mean, it's not like you sat there one afternoon and started writing 5-star reviews. You'd run out of things to say, but it is filled with positive reviews. And the book actually is 4.5, 4.75 stars, because a lot of people love a thriller. They love the technical aspects of it. And it's really is a fine piece of work that you've put together, sir.
Again, thank you. Appreciate it. Again, very fortunate. The media has been very kind to me. New York Post, Publishers Weekly, Herald Tribune, and on and on. I'm just can't say enough about it. And I feel very fortunate to be here.
Well, and you not only have done all of that, you've done a lot of interviews with a lot of really cool people, and I think it's great that you're doing so much work and to get the word out there. You've been on CBS, NBC News, Fox, all over the place. It's great. It's great that you're becoming a. Did you think that when you were behind the wheel or behind the steering wheel of a 777 that you would be a famous author one day?
I don't know if famous is exactly the right word for it just yet, but I didn't, and I didn't even. That was never the intention, And you had a story to write, and and I knew what the story was going to be. It was about automation and all the computers that are in an airplane in the world, and how dependent we are on those. And computers, of course, are wonderful, to have. Make things so much better and safer. But we are very much dependent on them. So that was the story. Then I decided, how do I want to tell this story? I wanted to tell it from a viewpoint of someone who's already comes in from a point of weakness, I guess. It's going to be a female pilot. People are going to be questioning, why is she here? In a very much dominant man's world. And so once I had the story and who wants to tell it, it was just kind of getting lost in the story. I didn't sit down and say, with Edgar's call or with, what will happen, or, at the, folks like yourself here talking. It just, then it wasn't some one of those things that was in front and center. But that's just a nice sideline. The journey has been pretty incredible. The highs are very high and the lows are not so much fun. But overall, it's just been wonderful to have people, see it, like it, appreciate it, and you get letters that say those things, and just nothing but gratitude for that.
Well, and like we said, you were a pilot for 40 years. You flew for American for a long time, didn't you?
35 years.
35 years with American. I've always wanted to know because I've never been able to get into a cockpit when the plane is in flight. But when after you take off and you set your course into the computer and stuff, what do you guys do there for, like, if you're flying from Seattle to Georgia and you're going to be there for 6.5, what do you guys do? Do you get out the Ouija board, or do you get out the cards and play little cards, or what does a pilot do when it's on automatic pilot and you're going across the country?
Well, 777, we actually can go across the world, and so yeah, it's 14-hour flights are very common. I have done 17 and a half hours in the cockpit before. Coming from Delhi to Kennedy, and in the winter months. What do you do? So absolutely, automation is key. Autopilot is key. Most pilots, anywhere between 5 minutes after takeoff to 15, 20 minutes after takeoff, they'll turn the autopilot on, and then turn it, and then they'll turn it off again, 5, 10, 15 minutes before landing, because you want that to do all the work. If you're at high altitudes, in the 30,000 feet or so, it's very difficult, hand flying, keeping something within 200 feet, which is where you need to be in order not to bust your altitude. And so the autopilot does an incredible job, takes care of all of that. And what do we do? We manage. We manage systems. We manage, the courses. We're of course there, for a lot of things that can go wrong. We manage, the cabin, the needs, and anything. There's a common thing to hear, in aviation, that aviation is 99% boredom followed by 1% of sheer terror. You just you just don't know which 1% that is. So you just have to be ready for it at all times. And then, of course, as you start to, you need to communicate with ground. You need to communicate with, if you're over the ocean, through the computers. You need to make sure you're going in the right direction. There's so much to do.
That's pretty helpful.
Yeah, because as you start to go, it doesn't take much to get off course, get lost, for something to go wrong. 777, with millions of moving parts, and so many variations. Weather goes bad someplace, and you can no longer go there. You have fuel limitations. Just so you're managing, you're watching to make sure everything is doing what it's supposed to do, and you're communicating, with the air traffic control. Make sure that you're, you have the separation that you're supposed to maintain with other, etc. Those are good. You're communicating with the company. You're, looking forward to see what happens the next hour, or 5 hours from now, or 15 hours from now. Whether your destination, the weather is still good, or if it is not good, what is your plan B and plan C? Just managing systems, managing everything. Not to mention that on board. I mean, I think you have 300 and some odd passengers in a 777-300 series at American Airlines. I mean, anything can happen. If you have an engine blow up, that's your responsibility, and if you run out of toilet paper, that's your responsibility. So it's a wide range of things to cover, and you just don't know, what you need to be doing, and where. Again, everything changes. I mean, you go to London, there is no flights from LA to any place, overseas, that is always the same. You just have to be prepared for what you have to do different this time.
It would be really interesting because anytime you get 350 human beings together, there's bound to be conflict about something, somewhere, about too much to drink, or not enough to drink, or running out of toilet paper. I didn't think a captain would be in charge of toilet paper, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, no, think about it. What happens if you have 300 people on board an aircraft, and you're going, on a 15-hour flight, and you run out of toilet paper? You have 300 people. Now think about it. It sounds silly. It sounds like, benign. That could create a full-fledged emergency. Um,
Sure.
what are you going to do with 300 people that need to go to the bathroom 2 or 3 or 4 times each? That would absolutely be an emergency. In fact, we have had that case. I had a case when we took off from Boston for LA. It was just a coast-to-coast flight, and they did not service the labs. And we forgot to check them. I don't know whatever the process was. This was on a 767. And so we took off, and an hour into it, they told us that the labs, are not flushing. Only 1 out of 5 or so labs are working. Um, I've got, in that airplane, maybe 250 people. That's a full-fledged emergency. And so we ended up having to divert, go down to Chicago, dump the labs, and then take off again. Uh, so it's an unforgiving when you're in a three-dimensional environment. You can't just pull over on the side here and click your blinkers and wait for something to happen. You know, you it's up to you to figure out everything. And absolutely, they're all and like I said, you just never know what will occur. Maybe nothing. Hopefully, nothing. But there's no guarantees.
I can now see how losing two or three of your potties would be a really bad thing when you've got a bunch of folks that need to go, and what do you do? And it's not like you got a bunch of Sears catalogs hanging around that people can use either. So that's interesting. So, and you also monitor all the gauges and make sure that the temperatures are right, and all of that kind of stuff. And there's a lot to know. There's a lot to do, isn't there?
All the systems in a cockpit. I mean, everybody has seen a picture of a cockpit or from time to time walked into one. Everything you're looking at is very much real. Every one of those things is a system that is critical to, the safety, of that flight. It could be, the engines, those are the big, big obvious things that seem to you, but some of the things are not. You could have an air problem, and pressurization or air conditioning. You could get too hot, too cold. It could be, electronics, hydraulics, it could be anything, and any one thing, again, there's different degrees of degradation. You could have, you got 6 backups to something, and the first portion of it fails, numbers 2 pick it up, 3 pick it up. But what if you only have 2 backups, and then one of them fails? Now you're down to nothing. You have 2 engines. You used to have 3 engines. You used to have 3 pilots. And sometimes you have 4 engines. Now we have two engines and 2 pilots on pretty much every aircraft that's being built today, other than maybe the 380, which they're discontinuing, on a 747 that has now been discontinued. Mostly you have 2 pilots, 2 aircraft. So when you have 2 of anything and one of those 2 fails, you're in an immediate critical mode. You got to do something. You got to get something on the ground. And then you got to get yourself out of that environment pretty quickly. You have 2 engines. Okay, great. Everything works out great 99.8% of the time or something like that. But that 0.2%, when it doesn't, and you're going, you're 3 hours over the Atlantic or the Pacific or the Indian Ocean, someplace where you can't, or Siberia, what are you going to do? You got to have a plan. You got to figure out what you got to do. There are limitations to abide by. There are restrictions that you have to follow, and the clock starts ticking pretty fast. And there's a lot of those. There's a lot of computers that have a single backup. There's a lot of systems that have a single backup, and time has proven that the single backup is good enough, because of a lack of failures, because they're so dependent. But again, when they just say so dependent, that means they're not bulletproof.
Well, exactly. And I've thought about this. Whenever you hear of a plane going down, and I know that it's difficult for the passengers and it's hell on them, but to be in the cockpit when your plane is in trouble, have you ever thought about what that's? I'm hoping that has never happened to you personally, but have you ever thought about what that's happening and what those guys are going through as they're losing control of the aircraft?
We think about that all the time. I can't imagine there's anyone that has spent any number of years in a cockpit that has not thought about that. You know, and it had certainly happened to me. You know, and again, 44 years in cockpits, 35 of them at American Airlines. You know, sooner or later something will happen. For me, there were 5 individual events where I really wished I was on the ground. You know, but 5 in 44 years is not so bad. You know, as far as the passengers, it is front and center in every captain's mind. You know, what are they feeling? How are they reacting? You know that you have to be, straightforward with them. You have to be honest with them. You're not trying to panic them. You know, because none of that does any good. You know, and so yeah, absolutely, that's front and center. You know, in our thoughts, in our minds, in how to manage them. You know, because last thing you need to do is just have a bunch of folks panicking back there or doing, you know, the wrong things. So listening to the flight attendants who are there primarily for, you know, the passenger safety, you know, is one of those key points that you emphasize on. You know, as well as, you know, keeping them informed. You know, through PAs, through, whatever means that are available to you, letting the flight attendants know so that they can communicate with them, you know, and so on, keeping them calm, but, you know, ready for, you know, whatever action needs to be taken. It's really key.
Well, you know, it takes some kind of courage, I would think, to because that happens enough. It doesn't happen. It happens. Fortunately, it happens less now than it used to, but it still is. It takes a great deal of courage to be able to know that whatever you're going to do and the outcome isn't going to be great. But that must be really hard to process as you're going through that. And you had 5 experiences that you would rather have back, and even in 44 years, that's still a lot when you think about it, because that's in your mind, and that doesn't go away.
No, it does not, and thankfully that's one of the things that keeps you safe. You know, every time you go fly, your experience, your time in there, and that's I don't have a point of reference, but I believe that's pretty common. You know, about one every 10 years is pretty common among pilots, you know, airline folks anyhow. Um, yeah, listen, you are still in a piece of aluminum tube that's going the speed of sound, over, unforgiving territory. You know, as you start to, punch over the East Coast or the West Coast, starting into, heading out over the Black Ocean, you know, knowing that there's nothing in front of you and whatever was behind you is getting further and further away. Uh, it's something that's going to, make you more alert. You are going to pay closer attention to, your instruments and, is there an engine vibration going on? Is there oil quantities, hydraulic quantities? Is something too hot, something too cold? You know, what's the weather like when I get there? Great example of that is the Hawaiian Islands. There's 5 airports over there. Well, Hui, Maui, Honolulu, Kona, and Hilo. And there's a couple of other, places. So essentially 5 airports that are out there, but they're very, clustered. They're next to each other. So you're looking for the tips of some volcanoes. You're looking for the tips of 5 volcanoes over there, and it's 3,000 miles away from LA. And you got another 2,000 miles on the other side before you see another tips of some more volcanoes. So you go through there. If there's a hurricane going through there,
Yeah.
if there is, if your navigation fails and you end up 2 degrees, 1 degree off course, 1 degree off course here is all it would take to end up 500 miles away, when you get over there, 300 miles away by the time you get over there. You just really have to be, and something does go wrong. The furthest 2 points on the planet Earth with no land is between Los Angeles and Honolulu and Hawaii, essentially, Hilo, closest airport.
Right.
Furthest 2 points. There's no place that you can go to that's further than these two, with nothing, no place to land in between. If you have a fire, somebody smokes a cigarette in the bathroom, and then puts it out in the, somewhere, and then the mechanics don't work, or something happens in the cargo compartment that you don't have any access to. So there's such a variety of things that just keep you occupied, keep you on your toes. And like I said, you fly, enough times, something. But not to mention, people, somebody gets a heart attack. You know, somebody gets sick, or somebody's fighting with somebody. Unfortunately, one of those things that you're seeing more and more of nowadays. With the environment that's out there. So there's a lot of times, a lot of places where things can go wrong, and you just have to be ready for those eventualities. Because again, it doesn't happen on almost every flight, but you just never know when it will.
And that keeps you on your that has to keep you on your toes.
The
I
entire time. The
so that
entire. You don't
so
go
I
to the bathroom as a captain. You don't go to the bathroom thinking that I'm going to be gone 4 minutes. What happens in those 4 minutes? If knowing certainly all well that nothing will happen, because nothing ever does. But what if it does?
and it makes you go potty that much quicker.
Oh yeah, those are some fast potty breaks.
Exactly. Now, I assume now when you're flying 17 hours, you have more than two pilots, I would imagine.
Yeah, general rule, and there are some exceptions, but the general rule for the airline flight, folks, Part 121 they call it, is any flight up to 8 hours, you only need one set of crew, two people, a captain or a first officer. Anything between 8 and 12 hours, you need one and a half crews, meaning that you bring out an extra captain or an extra first officer. And anything over 12 hours, you need two sets of crews. Two captain, sorry, it could be one captain and three first officers. And I think there's a limitation there past potential 16 hours that you need two captains and two FOs. So they have a system. There are some exceptions to that, but that's generally the rule. And you take breaks. So on a long flight, I mean, you're going from LA to Shanghai, or one of those places, Sydney, Auckland. You're going to take first 15, 20 minutes of the flight. Everybody's on board, watching everything, and once all things are settled and you start to get to your climb altitude, then whoever is resting leaves, goes back to the crew bunk area. And it's a bunk. It's a small room size of a kind of a pantry, a large pantry, two business class seats, two beds, and you take your rest, and then you just divide them up. The first half hour, last half hour, everybody's on board. Everything in between, you're just taking 3 hours on, 3 hours off, or 2 hours on, 2 hours off, etc.
So that's why I never see a captain or a first officer sitting amongst the passengers when they're taking a break, is because you've got a little crew quarters that they can go to.
Depending on the airplane, a 777-300 series has a bunk bed, upstairs. You actually have stairs, 2 floors. You go up there. 777-200 series, the bunk bed is just after the cockpit. So, you're going to be able to go in there and you'll see them coming in and out. Airbus is similar. Some of the airplanes have, bigger rooms, some of them less room. And no, generally you will not see a captain and a first officer, a guy with a 4-strap and 3-strap out, unless, of course, in a rare occasion, let's say they have, it's a 17-hour flight and you have, the two captains and two FOs. Then two are always taking a break. Captain and 4 taking a break while the other captain and 4 in the controls, and then they switch. So, but that's pretty rare.
Well, that's cool, because 17 hours is a long time to be in the cockpit paying attention to everything. So, this has been very interesting for me, because you provide, and you can provide us with a look into what it is that you guys do, that generally the general public has no earthly idea what it is you do or how complicated it is. And I'm assuming, because you're monitoring all of these gauges and pressures and all of that, there's a great deal of schooling that has to go with that, to understand what each of those things does, so that you can monitor them properly. I would assume. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So aircraft, once you get to a certain level, say the airline level, those types of aircraft, they're all similar. And they're not the same, but they're similar insofar as they have the same systems. Every aircraft has a hydraulic system, airline type aircraft. Every aircraft has, an electric system, air system, fuel system, engines, et cetera, navigation system, and so on. But you go say from, if you're going from Boeing to Boeing, they have some similarity. If you go from Airbus to Airbus, they're even more similar. But if you go from a Boeing to an Airbus or vice versa, then they're quite a bit different. Even though they each have a hydraulic system, but hydraulic systems are completely different. In a Boeing, there's three systems: there's left, center, and right. And then in Airbus, it's going to be green, yellow, and blue. For some reason, they didn't want to. The two manufacturers didn't want to sound the same, look the same, whatever. And that's what they did. But regardless of what you do, and most airlines, certainly this was an American, whenever you switch airplanes, whether you switch seats from left seat to the right seat, or you switch an airplane from 757 to a 767 or 777 to 787, then you got to go through a month of school, 35 days of school. 2 weeks of it is sitting on the ground looking at systems, and 2 weeks of it is in the simulator figuring out the what if scenarios. And so 2 weeks of it is normal situations. 2 weeks of it is non-normal situations. And then by that time you come through after 30 days, you're more familiar with this. There's more training online when you're done. You have to fly a certain number of hours with the check airman so that they can make sure that you're okay, actually being in the environment. And then after that, they'll let you on your own.
That's a lot of detail that you have to learn and go through and stuff. But now, I don't know if you know this, Cam, but this podcast is being produced outside of Seattle, which used to be, now they're in Chicago, used to be the home of the Boeing company. We still have got a huge presence here. And so you can defer this question if you want to, but which would you rather fly, a Boeing jet or an Airbus jet?
A Boeing jet.
Thank you.
Almost everyone that says this and flies this prefers Boeing. Even Airbus guys prefer Boeing. It's more designed around a pilot, I think. For one thing, you have a yoke. You got a yoke that you turn around. Airbus, you have sticks. It's a 6-7 inch stick that's sitting on one side. And the two sticks. And here you have two yokes, captain and FO's yokes. One turns, the other one turns. One pulls, the other one pulls. In an Airbus, you got the stick on the left side for the captain and one on the right side for the FO. But one moves, the other one stays steady, doesn't move. So there are certain things like that. Now, having said that, Airbus planes are also fantastic. So I may be, I've flown a lot more Boeings than I have Airbuses. So maybe that's, I'm being a little prejudiced about that. But Airbus has a lot of great advantages too. I mean, not having a yoke isn't all that bad because you can cross your legs, and you have a tray. There's a tray that comes up, and you're not eating your meal on the pants of your legs. You're eating it actually on a tray. So they're both fantastic. They really are, and I wouldn't give it up, change it for anything. But if I had to pick, I would say 52-48 Boeing.
Well, and there's isn't that one of the reasons why Southwest flies only 737s, I believe, and is because it's easy for training. It's easy if the entire fleet is one type of aircraft.
Absolutely. Just imagine if the entire fleet is one aircraft. I don't have to train a captain to fly a different kind of an airplane. I don't have to train a first officer to fly a different kind of airplane. The training for pilots becomes multiples of times easier. The training for the maintenance people becomes multiples of times easier. The spare parts you have to keep. Everything becomes easier, significantly easier. Those are the good parts. The bad side of it is, you're gonna go in and you're gonna get a job at Southwest, or you're gonna fly Southwest. You'll fly 737s on your first day, and you will fly 737s on your last day. And there is something to be said. I mean, I flew 6 or 8 different type of airplanes at American Airlines. I flew short hauls, long hauls. international stuff. I mean, Southwest, the biggest international thing they do is now Hawaii, and they only started doing that, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago. Before that, it was just very much a regional carrier. Again, great things, wonderful airline. People that work for it love it. It's just for me, being able to switch up was a big deal. I really enjoyed being able to fly long hauls, and go places that you just wouldn't get a chance to do here, in a smaller airline. But is it easier to maintain? Absolutely. Just your training cycles alone. I mean, just on so many levels. You're the ramp folks, that are loading, and unloading the bags. They only have to know one kind of aircraft, not this kind and that kind, and all the support equipment that you need. American Airlines needs different types of tugs to push you back depending on the weight of the aircraft, or loaders and unloaders, for taking the luggage in and out of, it takes a different type of a loader and a tug to take care of a 737 than it does a 777, which weighs 4 times as much, 3.5 times as much. So it eliminates all of that. But then again, with that comes, something else, that's just the routineness of just being in the same thing, for the rest of your life. So,
Well, it's you've taught me a lot here, because in the previous conversation that we had, I learned that it is a seniority based system, and if I were a captain that had gained some measure of seniority, I would really like to be able to pick a trip to maybe Taiwan, or to Japan, or to Australia, so that I can see that part of the country and that part of the world. Where if it's a regional carrier like Southwest, it's like, okay, am I going to go to Albuquerque, or am I going to go to Oklahoma, or Oklahoma City? So it's I can see how, once you've been in the system a while and you're comfortable flying, that the it would be much more interesting to have diversity of flight rather than it all being the same.
for some people, and listen, some other people just like the routineness of it. Some people like to just be in a smaller place. It's a faster, work. It's tough to go from here to Taiwan and just take breaks. Here, if you go up and down 3 or 4 times in a day, that keeps you busier. So some people just like that. Some people like this, and God bless them. That's how it works out. For me, the variety made a big difference, and I was, I held out. I was hired by other airlines, but I held out for American, and thrilled that happened, and wouldn't change that for anything.
Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to explain all of this airplane stuff to us, because I know that in your book, which, by the way, that's what we're talking about. We're talking to Kam Majd and his book, which, by the way, the book is called High Wire, and it's about a woman who stands accused, but the cost of to prove her innocence may just be her life. I love that, and it's a high wire act, as it were. And how long in the development process was this book? How long did you think about before you started writing it?
Not long. This was, I've written books that, this was only about 6 months from beginning to end, but I've had another book where it's taken 20 years, to try and put the end on it. So this was, the story was mostly just formed in my head. I wanted to write a story about the captain who's wrongfully accused, the captain who. Um, essentially purposely crashed. The airplane is very close to the ground, knowing that it's the unthinkable. But she did it because the aircraft controls, flight controls, stopped responding to her commands. And she knew if they take off and continue going, that it would end up crashing at a higher altitude and everyone would be lost. In this case, there's 6 people lost. And of course, all fingers are pointed to her because there is no clear indication of what happened, and so the fact that it's a woman, the questions are raised about her, ability and quality of her training, whether she should have been in the seat at all. And so she not only has to do what a pilot has to do, she has to overcome the fact that she's a female. and that the way she's perceived, in the industry, through the media, and it takes the length of the book to learn. So the whole crash occurs in chapter one. That's the first chapter. So she spends the length of the book to try and prove herself and prove what has happened. And it's a computer virus that has been placed into the systems, of the aircraft, the flight control systems, until until she comes face to face with the person who's created it. And there she learns that another aircraft has been contaminated halfway over the Atlantic with no chance of coming back. And the only rare, smallest possibility of saving them is if she essentially tries to sacrifice herself, gets on a plane and goes out there and tries to save them, but won't be able to come back. And that's kind of how the book is, and that's how it ended. I won't give too much of that away. Let you see
Yeah,
through
don't
that.
give any more away, because now somebody, I want to read the book. It sounds, it's now I got to ask you, when they take this book, and I know it's being shopped in Hollywood right now, when they take this book and they put a screenplay to it, and then the casting director shows up, who do you want to play the heroine?
They have asked me this question several times, many times. It's a young female person who is a first generation immigrant. Brie Larson would be amazing. Jennifer Lawrence would be great at it. She's in her mid 30s. She has a 5-year-old, daughter. She's an orphan. I'm sorry, she's a widow. And so I think both of those ladies have shown a great range of, ability, to portray different, emotions. But I'm sure there are many other great actors out there that would be, fantastic in the role. But those the two that just came to mind when I was asked.
I vote for Jennifer Lawrence. I think sure her acting skills are amazing, and her comedic skills, after watching her last movie, were really good too. So I agree with you. That would be awesome. I hope it gets picked up. And if you are a Hollywood producer, get the book and read it, and call Cam, and maybe you guys can strike a deal to take the book and make a movie out of it, because it's one of those movies that, or one of those books that I think really lends well to making a movie out of it.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. There's been a lot of interest in it out there. I have an agent out there, Ryan Lipson. He is, just started shopping it around. But again, the writer's strike happened. I think it was April is when it started. It's already taken so long. So that's kind of not helping too much. But it is what it is till it's not.
Boy, I got to tell you, look at you. You're a pilot for 40 years. You're an author, an award-winning author. You've got an agent. My goodness gracious. Look at you.
Thank you. I've been very fortunate and very, very happy to be here. Just see
I
how things go.
I think that there's perhaps being fortunate is a degree of it, but there's also a lot of talent there, that you're just using your God-given talents to create something great. And I think that's wonderful. I wish that we all, even after we retire and you're supposed to now, go play golf or whatever, that we all live our passion and we go pursue stuff that makes us happy. Um, and you can help people at the same time. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled again, to be able to use your time, doing what you want to do versus what you have to do. Even though it wasn't like that in aviation, every pilot loves what they're doing, and I enjoyed that. But now, as you start to the retirement phase of life, it's nice to be able to go to London and not spend more than 22 hours there.
Yeah.
Um, you know, because that's what
Yeah.
it was for, I don't know, 15 years, or go to Hawaii and not come back the next morning or the next all night. I can actually spend, a week there and enjoy it. But having said that, it's also so lovely to be able to, use your time doing something that you love. I mean, to go from something that you love to something else that you love. I mean, how lucky am I?
I I can tell you. I was involved in mass transit for 12 years as well. Only mine was driving a bus in Seattle, and it's different than we don't get off the ground. Number one, and
Well,
so
I also drove a bus. It was an Airbus. You
oh,
know?
exactly. Well, yours was a bit more complicated than what I did, but there are still components, and I loved what I did. I love talking to the people. See, and that's the thing. You as a pilot, your interactions with the um, air traveling public are rather limited. You don't get to go back and hobnob with them. You probably wouldn't want to, quite frankly, after a couple of cocktails are served or something. But it's great to have you here, and the name of the book again is High Wire, and go get the book. You can get it; it's available everywhere, you can also go to his website. I love your website. You've got a radio or a podcast that you did not too long ago. That's right there on the front page. You can go to that, and you can learn all about Positive Talk Radio from that as well. And but go to his website, which is kammaj.com. That's KAMMAJD. That's correct, right?
Yes, it is. Just the .com at the end of that, or just Kam Majd's books, on all the social media, and leave me a message, say hello. The book is available in every format, hardback, paperback, audiobook, Kindle, and so on. And it's a fun read. It's enjoyable. And next one, Silent Voices, is in the oven. It's all been done. It's fine. It's being edited, and we will see. What that does here in the next. I'm guessing before the end of the year for sure.
Will you come back and talk about that book when it's time?
I would love to.
I would love to have you. I know the premise of the book is it involves. I'm not going to say anything, but it involves um, Afghanistan and and that's all I'm going to say. Uh, so I hope that comes out and it does as well as Highwire, because this book, I got a feeling, that um, you're going to be walking the red carpet one of these days.
Well, from your mouth to Hollywood's ears, But it's fun. Listen, seriously, regardless of what happens, it really truly is a journey, and it's been nothing but a blast. I have, regardless of what happens, I've had a lot of fun doing this.
Well, I'm glad, because to do something like this, it is a legacy. Then you're putting together a legacy that you're leaving for the future, and that's pretty awesome. All we have to do now is get rid of the writer's strike and the actors strike, so everybody can go back to work the way they're supposed to.
Wouldn't that be lovely? I'm
Just
just,
make it a whole
I don't
bunch
know what's
easier.
taking so long, but guys, figure it out.
Well, it's that AI thing, and so they're concerned about people, about the producers using AI, and actors aren't being used anymore, and voice actors and all that kind of stuff. So they'll figure it out, but it may take a while.
Right.
So is there anything else you'd like to add, or have left anything out that you
No,
need
it's
to?
been a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you again. And when Silent Voices comes out, and just a 10-second version, it's a story of two sisters, two blood sisters. One is born and raised in America, one is born and raised in Afghanistan. And she has no clue that she has an American heritage. She just doesn't understand why she has blonde hair and blue eyes and light skin, and then she's carrying, she's an Afghan, and they find out about each other. The whole story takes place 30 days before the American pullout, July of 2021, and it's a fast-paced thriller. We deal with warlords and the poppy fields and special forces, and and some of the insanity of what happened, prior to that.
I gotta believe that a blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl that is in Afghanistan, who thinks she's an Afghanistani, is that right?
Afghan.
Afghan, and Afghan, and then And everybody's saying, I don't know, but I don't think so. Or her poor mom is probably going, I didn't do it, really. He would, anyway. So that's a story for another time. But Kam, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciated having you on the show, and we will have you back with the new book when it comes out. And I hope this one, but I hope at this point in time we'll be talking about the writing of the screenplay for Highwire when we're talking about the new book.
I'll look forward to that, and I look forward to seeing you again, Kevin. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
You betcha. Thank you so much for being here. And if you wait right there, I'll be right back. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of PositiveTalkRadio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named PositiveTalkRadio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we got.